Chapter 541. When the 5 children saw Tim nod, all of them hugged him and gave him a peck on his cheek. "We knew you wouldn't blame Mommy." Tim stood frozen after being showered by everyone's warm attention. "I'll inform Mommy right away. She'll definitely be delighted to hear it." Unable to contain her elation, Jessie slipped out at once. When Zachary saw how stunned Tim was, he burst into laughter and teased, "Tim, don't be shy. Mommy will be overjoyed to know that you don't blame her." Tim grunted softly. "Tim, if you call her Mommy instead of Miss York, she'll be even happier." Oliver gave him a mischievous look. Tim was tongue-tied, as he hadn't gotten used to it yet. "Take your time. It's fine to address her as Miss York for the time being." Beaming, Zachary gestured for Oliver to stop harping on the topic. "Tim, let's go and see Mommy too." Gavin pulled him along. Just as he nodded, Tim's tanned face began to blush. At that moment, Jessie returned to the group. "Mommy isn't around," Jasper asked. "Where did she go?" "Grandma mentioned that she has gone to tailor some clothes." Jessie scratched her head. "Tailor some clothes?" Oliver asked curiously. Tim explained, "Perhaps, the clothes I'm wearing are too big for me." "In that case, let's go and see Grandma." Gavin ushered all his younger siblings over to Mary's ward. With Tim's clothes in hand, Orissa managed to find a tailor near the hospital to alter them into one size smaller. Recalling that Tim's shoes were also too big, she got the driver to send her to the closest mall after searching for one on the internet. Once she arrived, she rushed to the children's section to shop for clothes. When Benjamin returned from the doctor's office, he only saw the children in Mary's ward. "Where's Mommy?" All 6 children looked at him in unison. "Mommy went to alter Tim's clothes," Gavin replied. Benjamin left the room and asked the bodyguard, "Has Orissa gone out?" "Yes, Mr. Graham." Pursing his lips, Benjamin went to the next room to work. Given that she's unfamiliar with the place, where did she manage to find a tailor? Why is she taking so long? When Darius called, Benjamin waited for a while before answering. "Why haven't you sent me the address after I asked you to? Send it over at once." "You had better not come." Benjamin pinched his forehead. "This old man. I want to see my grandson. Send it over." Darius roared in a resonating voice. After throwing his phone aside, Benjamin continued with his work. The next second, he picked up his phone and gave Orissa a call. When she didn't pick up, Benjamin pursed his lips tighter. What is she doing? Why isn't she answering her phone? Growing frustrated, Benjamin furrowed his brows. Do I care too much about his woman? The moment he realized the phenomenon, Benjamin's face darkened. I can't show that I care so much about her. Or else, she will be too full of herself, especially when she's barely bothered about me. After managing to calm down, Benjamin got back to work. Back at home in Delmore, Darius was fuming. That little punk is growing more insolent by the day. How dare he refuse to give me the address? Old Mr. Graham, please calm down. Perhaps, Mr. Graham will bring your grandchildren home soon, William reassured Darius. Darius snorted in displeasure. Go now and find out where they are. Just as he gave out his instructions, he stopped William. Wait, let me ask Issa. She is definitely with them. William was amused. You can also give the children a call. They would probably be there too. I'm going to give my daughter-in-law a call, for there's no way she would say no to me. Besides, even my grandchildren might not be willing to reveal their location. After letting out an arrogant grunt, Darius gave Orissa a call. Chapter 542. After leaving the children's section, Orissa received Darius' call just when she wanted to get some new clothes for Mary. Issa, are you with the children? I was, but I left them to go out shopping. What is it, Mr. Graham? She headed toward the floor that sold clothes for the elderly. I want to ask you if you are with the child. Darius couldn't hide his excitement. Tim is together with us, Orissa replied with a smile as she walked. Just when she entered one of the shops, she was jolted by a familiar voice. Issa, where is he? I'll go over to visit, Darius pressed on. When there was no response, Darius shouted anxiously, Issa! Issa! Orissa! Just when he heard an unfamiliar voice ring out, the call ended at once. Knitting his brows, Darius grew concerned. That sounds bad. Something must have happened to Issa. Hurry, give Benjamin a call and get him to check on her. Don't let anyone harm my daughter-in-law. Darius instructed William. Yes, old Mr. Graham. William gave Benjamin a call. Thinking that Darius had ordered William to come asking for the address, Benjamin didn't answer. Subsequently, Darius himself called the second time. Dad, Issa is in trouble. You should check on her at once. Benjamin roared before ending the call. With a darkened gaze, Benjamin called Orissa at once. Orissa, why are you here? Finley Durden rolled her eyes at the sight of Orissa. What an unlucky day to run into her today. Orissa's expression turned grim at the unexpected encounter. After all, the York family had broken ties with her a long time ago. Meanwhile, Finley scrutinized Orissa with a resentful look in her eye. When she noticed that they were in the elderly clothing section, the thought of Orissa buying a present further infuriated her. Don't think that just because you buy some clothes for your granduncle, you will be welcome to the birthday banquet. Instead of getting him a present, you should just give me the money. I'll buy my own brother some clothes. When she saw how the shameless old lady extended her hand for money, Orissa's eyes flashed with disdain. It's not what you think. Orissa recalled that Northstream was Finley's hometown. No wonder she's here buying a present for her brother's birthday. What's there to misunderstand? Aren't you here to buy clothes for your granduncle? Since you don't know what suits him, you should just give me the money. In fact, you don't even have to attend the banquet and jinx the occasion. Anyway, be quick about it. I still need to rush over. Assuming that Orissa was there to buy her brother clothes, Finley demanded money matter-of-factly. That's right, Issa, you don't know how to choose clothes for the elderly. Hence, you had better give your grandma the money, and we'll just buy it for you, Finley's younger sister, Morgan Durden, added. Giving Orissa a resentful look, she felt her grandniece was nothing but a nuisance. Therefore, they didn't dare invite her to the birthday banquet. After ending her call, Orissa ignored the two old ladies and walked straight into the shop. Hello, can you get me a set of this and another one with that design? Both have to be in medium. Ignored by Orissa, Finley and Morgan were outraged. Suddenly, they saw Orissa instructing the staff to wrap up the clothes she bought. Finley, is Issa buying us clothes? Not bad. Delighted by what she saw, Morgan softly praised Orissa in front of Finley. Looks like she still has some respect for us. Not only is she buying clothes for Adrian, but she's also buying a set for us. Finley, too, was elated. She commented smugly, I like the designs she picked, and the clothes cost quite a bit too. Looks like it's your lucky day to be able to bask in my glory. Morgan added with a smile. That's right. Under normal circumstances, I can't bring myself to buy a set of clothes that cost a few hundred. As Morgan wasn't as rich as Finley, she had to rely on the latter and naturally ingratiated herself with her all the time. Chapter 543. When Orissa overheard their conversation, she cracked a mocking smile. Even though a few years have gone by, nothing has changed. They're just as thick-skinned as ever. Subsequently, she went to pay for the clothes and waited for the staff to wrap them. When her phone rang again, she saw that it was from Benjamin. The moment she was about to answer, Morgan came over to take the clothes away. Issa, I'll be accepting the gift. Thank you for the thoughtful gesture. It's been a few years since we last saw you. Have you just returned recently? In the meantime, Finley instructed the staff to pack some men's clothes. We'll have 8 sets. She'll be paying for all of them. As a gloomy expression descended upon her face, Orissa snatched the clothes back from Morgan's hands. Who says I'm buying them for you? What? Finley and Morgan glared at Orissa. Issa, you don't have to be shy. These clothes are obviously for us. Even the sizes are a perfect match. When Morgan came over to snatch the clothes away, Orissa avoided her with a scowl. Are you trying to rob from me? You. Morgan pointed at Orissa with her face red in anger. Insolence. How dare you speak to your grandaunt that way? Even though her expression drastically changed, the severity of her tone didn't reflect her anger. If she isn't buying them for Morgan, she must be getting them for me. Why else would she be buying clothes for the elderly? You can give your grandaunt one set, as one will be enough for me. Orissa sneered, didn't I just say that I wasn't buying them for you? When Finley realized she was being humiliated in front of a bunch of onlookers, her face turned grim. The cordial tone she adopted earlier was replaced by one that was hostile. You unfilial girl, are you playing games with me? Considering that the York family has raised you, what's the big deal about buying some clothes for your grandma? Give them to me. After dodging Finley's hands, Orissa stood by the side, staring coldly at her. Orissa, with her eyes spitting fire, Finley scolded, how can you treat your own grandma this way? Grandma, you're not worthy. When Orissa saw that a crowd had gathered and were gossiping about them, she didn't mind exposing Finley at all. If I had a choice, I wouldn't want to be born in the York family. What have you given me ever since I was born? All you did was steal my mom's assets and kicked me out. When I was older, you persuaded me to come back just to have me sold. Have you forgotten what you did to me back then? Did you even remember that I am your granddaughter when you plotted against me with your son and was happily counting the money you made from it? Outraged by what they heard, the crowd began to disparage Finley. What an evil grandmother you are. How can she be so cruel as to sell her own granddaughter for profit? She's so shameless. The moment I saw her trying to snatch something, I knew she was up to no good. I didn't expect her to have the cheek to ask for a gift after all the terrible things she had done. If I had a grandmother like her, I would give her a verbal lashing every time I see her. Exactly. I have no idea how they can be so thick-skinned. After treating her granddaughter so badly, how can she still expect the latter to be filial? Lady, you should call the police. There's no way you can allow them to get away scot-free after selling you off. Only the law can punish people like them. Therefore, don't hold back on the account of familial ties, as they have never treated you as their granddaughter at all. With her face red with anger, Finley glared at the onlookers and snapped, what do all of you know? How can you believe her slander just like that? We didn't sell her at all. Instead, she was being promiscuous and slept around. After we reprimanded her a few times, she ran away from home. As elders, isn't it our responsibility to teach her? And now, she's laying the blame on us instead. You jinx! My son shouldn't have married your mother who brought nothing but bad luck. Once she married into our family, she caused my husband to die. After she gave birth to you, I ended up in an accident. Luckily, I was tough enough. Or else, I would have been cursed to death by you. My family was extremely unlucky to have met a mother and daughter like you. Now, you end up hurling baseless accusations at us. How much more terrible can my life be? Chapter 544. Finley began to cry and scream at the top of her lungs, making for a miserable sight. Now that you're all grown up, you have the cheek to bully an old lady like me. It's fine if you don't acknowledge me as your grandma, but is it necessary to humiliate me this way? Orissa watched Finley putting on an act with an icy expression. My mom is unlucky to have met your useless son. Not only did you steal her assets, but you also caused her death. That is nothing but lies. My son isn't responsible for her death. Your mom died of disease due to how despicable she is. In fact, Finley's gaze grew cold. It's you who jinxed her to her death. Clenching her fist, Orissa retorted furiously, if I'm a jinx, why are you still alive? You bitch. A vicious glint flashed in Finley's eye as she swung her hand in Orissa's direction. Suddenly, another hand appeared and grabbed Finley's hand. Who is it? Just as Finley turned her head, her eyes met with a piercing gaze, sending a chill down her spine. Benjamin threw her hand aside. Obviously, Finley's strength was no match for a man. After staggering a few steps back, she ended up crashing onto the ground. Are you all right? Benjamin pulled Orissa into his arms to protect her. Shocked at his sudden appearance, Orissa stared blankly at him and shook her head. I'm fine. Why did you come? Benjamin stared at her. If I hadn't, wouldn't you be hit for nothing? Orissa felt her heart warm. Oh my. After painstakingly raising you, Orissa, is this how you treat your own grandma? How can you be so ungrateful to get a brute to hit your elderly? Finley began crying and screaming on the ground. Morgan ran up to her. Finley, Are you all right? Finley held onto her leg as she cried. Both of them bullied me and even hit me. I'm sure my bone is broken. Narrowing his gaze, Benjamin was filled with murderous intent. After giving his bodyguards a look, they knowingly approached Finley and gave her a few slaps. She was consequently smacked into a daze with blood oozing out the corner of her lips and her face swollen all over. In fact, she even lost a few teeth from the impact. Terrified, Morgan began to shriek, "Help! Help! Shut up!" The bodyguard threatened, causing Morgan to gape in fear. All she could do was watch her sister being beaten up in silence. Even Orissa was taken aback at how brutal Benjamin was. The crowd was equally shocked by the scene. Holding Orissa in his arms, Benjamin fumed angrily, "You deserve a beating to cleanse that filthy mouth of yours. Why you despicable couple, how dare you get someone to strike me? I'll never let you go for this." Finley had never been beaten in her life. When she couldn't resist scolding Benjamin and Orissa, the bodyguard gave her another slap, causing her to scream in agony. Benjamin's expression was terrifyingly gloomy. If she dares to continue ranting, beat her until she shuts up. Yes, Mr. Graham. Standing in front of Finley, the bodyguard gave her an expressionless stare. When her eyes met with Benjamin's murderous gaze, Finley finally realized that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. This damn girl, when did she get to know such a fearsome man? No wonder she dares to disrespect me. Despite cursing in her mind, Finley didn't dare utter a sound. Have you gotten what you came for? Benjamin lowered his gaze at her. Even though his tone was still frosty, there was a tinge of warmth to it still. Orissa nodded. I have. In that case, let's go. Benjamin left while wrapping her in his arms. Orissa, you're not allowed to go. Are you going to leave your own grandma here just like that? Also, you haven't paid for your granduncle's clothes. Finley was so shameless that she called out to Orissa when she remembered the clothes. Chapter 545. Orissa stopped in her tracks abruptly. Furrowing his brows, Benjamin lowered his gaze at her. She's your grandma. Orissa had a sullen look on her face. No. Turning around, she sneered, I don't have a grandma like you, so stop playing victim just because you're an elder. You don't deserve it at all. Also, don't call me your granddaughter just because you want me to pay for your things, as it has nothing to do with me at all. Finley stared at her in disbelief. Aren't you my granddaughter? Orissa was amused. Am I only your granddaughter whenever you need money? When you don't, do I turn into a jinx? Given how vicious you are, shouldn't you learn to have a heart if you want me to show you some respect? By then, a scowl had replaced the smile on her face. From the day you sold me off 5 years ago, I no longer have anything to do with all of you. In fact, I will make sure you are punished by the law for what you have done. Go back and tell your son that it's just a matter of time before I settle this score with him. Even though Donna was unforgivable, Regan was worse. If he hadn't plotted against her, Donna wouldn't have had the opportunity to do the same later. Also, she and her children wouldn't have had a close shave with death. How can you be so cruel? Finley's eyes opened so wide that they could pop out anytime. Just when the bodyguard stepped forward to slap her, Finley held onto her cheeks frantically. Don't hit me. If you dare continue ranting, it will be more than just a slap. The bodyguard warned. When she saw the usually arrogant Finley terrified into silence, Orissa averted her gaze. Let's go. She didn't want to spend another moment together with Finley, for the latter disgusted her. After giving his bodyguard a look, Benjamin left together with Orissa. Inside the car, she put the shopping bags aside. She had intended to get Mary some shoes, but her mood was spoiled by her encounter with Finley. Hence, she decided to get them next time. Benjamin handed her a water bottle. Drink some hot water. Orissa received it and took a few mouthfuls. When she saw him staring at her, she turned to look at him. I'm fine. Benjamin's eyes glistened slightly. Has that old lady always treated you that way? His expression was exceptionally gloomy. Other than having a filthy mouth, she's all right, Orissa replied in a nonchalant tone, for she had gotten used to it. It was only when Finley disparaged her mother that she lost her temper. In response, Benjamin pulled her into his embrace and patted her on the head. When someone derides you like that the next time, you should strike first instead of standing there cluelessly, waiting to be hit. Orissa felt a jolt in her heart. Benjamin stared at her intently, cognizant of her bad mood. What did you buy? I bought clothes for both Tim and Madame Mary. Also, I got Tim a pair of shoes. Let me see. Benjamin brought the bags over and took out the top she bought for Tim. This suits him. He looks good in white given how tan he is. Orissa glanced at him. After Benjamin put it back, Orissa took it out to fold it when she noticed he didn't do so. Is that necessary? Benjamin stared earnestly at her. It will be crumpled if I don't fold it. After wiping the creases away, Orissa folded it carefully. Once we take it back, we'll have to wash it before letting our son wear it, Benjamin reminded. I know. Even then, it still needs to be folded. Orissa put the clothes back into the bag once she was done. The children mentioned that you went out to alter some clothes, so I didn't expect you to be running around buying them too. Why didn't you tell me? In response to his complaint, Orissa looked at him and smiled. Aren't you supposed to be busy? There's no point in telling you, as I would be heading back once I am done. By the way, how did you find me? When Benjamin leaned back into his seat, he pulled Orissa along, who then adjusted her posture upright. Dad called me, as he was worried that you were in trouble. Tracking you down was the easy part. Orissa's heart warmed to learn of it. That's really nice of old Mr. Graham. Frowning, Benjamin snapped. Why are you praising him when I was the one who came to your aid? Chapter 546. Orissa rolled her eyes with a smile. You did well too. Thank you, Mr. Graham. When he saw the mischievous look in her eyes and how it glistened with the light, Benjamin was briefly shaken. He pinched her cheeks. You're welcome. I did it on the account of the children. With a twitch of her lips, Orissa turned away to look out the car window. Is it so hard to admit that he cares for me? When Benjamin saw her turning her back toward him, he assumed that she was hurt by his words. Hence, he leaned closer and whispered into her ear, I was worried about you too. His deep magnetic voice sounded especially alluring. Orissa's heart skipped a beat before it began to pound furiously. Breaking into a smile, she turned to look at him. When his lips brushed across her face, Orissa recoiled to avoid it as her cheeks began to burn. Benjamin gazed longingly at her. When he saw how adorable she was when blushing, he tousled her hair. Why is the York family here? Orissa's eyes sparkled. North Stream is her hometown. Nodding in response, Benjamin instructed, if there's anything you want to buy, just get Ethan or the bodyguards to get them. Orissa nodded and reassured him. I'm fine, as they barely harmed a hair on my head. Instead, I managed to get on their nerves. Benjamin chortled. But all I saw was you standing cluelessly there. Orissa was stumped. If you hadn't appeared, I would have dodged, all right. Previously, she didn't dare resist out of respect for her elders. But now, things were different. She was no longer the old Orissa who would let everyone walk over her. She would respond in kind to whoever bullied her. Benjamin grunted in acknowledgement. His concerns were eased when he saw that Orissa wasn't as glum as before. Why didn't you answer when I called your phone? Orissa giggled in response to his question. Wasn't I facing off with them? How would I have time to pick it up? Benjamin responded with a snort. Taking out her phone to check, Orissa realized that she had 2 missed calls. I need to call old Mr. Graham back. She didn't want him to worry. Don't call him. When Benjamin snatched her phone away from her, Orissa was shocked and just looked at him. What's with you? If you call him, he'll definitely ask where we are. Benjamin was cognizant of the reason why Darius called Orissa in the first place. Orissa was amused. I can choose not to tell him. Benjamin snorted to express his disbelief. Can you promise that you won't waver? Pursing her lips, Orissa rebutted, I'm not sure if I can, but it's not a big deal if old Mr. Graham comes over. He just wants to see Tim. He'll see him when we take them back. Besides, it's pointless for him to come here. Going back and forth is just too much trouble, Benjamin objected in a deep voice. However, we can't go back now, can we? Orissa empathized with how anxious Darius was to see Tim. Just do as I say. He will be nothing but a nuisance if he comes, Benjamin warned with a frown. Orissa was amused. I got it. I won't tell him. Benjamin let out a smug grunt. Smiling in response, Orissa ordered the driver to drop her at the tailor when she saw that they were about to arrive at the hospital entrance. You should head back first. I need to pick up the clothes. Just as she spoke, she alighted after the car came to a stop. When she was about to close the door, she saw Benjamin coming down with her. Are you going with me? Benjamin nodded as he alighted. To make sure you won't run off without warning. Benjamin then held her hand. Lead the way. Beaming in response, Orissa reminded him, it's dirty there. Are you sure you want to follow me? When Benjamin gave her the side eye, she chuckled at the thought of how he was a clean freak. It's not that dirty. It just isn't as clean as Delmore. That's all. When they arrived, Benjamin knitted his brows and reprimanded her. Can't you find some place cleaner? Why would you even come to such a dirty place? Orissa was dumbfounded. Even though the other streets were cleaner, this particular one was dirtier due to the mess left by vendors selling supper the night before. Unlike Benjamin, she had a greater tolerance for dirty surroundings. Why don't you wait for me here? Chapter 547. Benjamin stared at her with a frown. Where is it? I'll get my men to pick them up. Stumped, Orissa pointed to a spot that was just 10 meters away. There, I'll go get it myself. You should just wait here. Not wanting to dwell on the matter further, she hurried over at once. Tim's clothes were ready to be picked up. After conducting a quick check, she paid for them and returned to Benjamin. Throughout the entire episode, Benjamin's gaze never left her at all. When Orissa walked up to him and saw that his brows were still furrowed, she teased, Mr. Graham, do you want me to keep a distance from you? As Benjamin's expression darkened, he held her hand before walking back out. Orissa giggled under her breath. If his clothes don't fit, you should just buy new ones. What's the point of altering them? Looking at the grouchy expression on Benjamin's face, Orissa replied with a smile, Tim likes these clothes. Hence, altering them will make them fit better. She had initially planned to keep the clothes till he was older. Nevertheless, she was worried that Tim would wear them on his own accord, together with his shoes. Benjamin cocked a brow. You have a pretty good eye when it comes to choosing children's clothing. The children like them a lot. Orissa grinned. Well, kids always like clothes that make them look cool. Narrowing his gaze, Benjamin gave her the side eye. In that case, why don't you buy something cool for Jessie? Why does she have to wear pink prints? His sudden admonishment aggrieved Orissa. Despite her urge to explain, she swallowed her words in the face of Benjamin's intimidating look and decided not to tell him. My sweetheart can wear whatever she wants. If you don't like it, you can always look away. What a witty remark. Benjamin snapped. Zipping her mouth, Orissa followed Benjamin back to their car. You should get in. I want to walk back and buy some food along the way. Benjamin protested, but it's still some distance away. Orissa scanned the surroundings. I'll go buy something to eat. Nevertheless, Benjamin pulled her back into the car. Whatever you feel like eating, I'll get Ethan to buy them. After being forced into the car, Orissa explained, it's not me. I just want to buy some for the children. Benjamin scrutinized the shops outside. They are not clean. Orissa was speechless. I shouldn't have told him. Subsequently, their car drove back to the hospital without stopping for Orissa to buy any food. When they arrived, they returned to Mary's ward. Watching Orissa strut off, Benjamin frowned. Is she angry because I didn't allow her to buy food earlier? He gestured for Ethan to come over. Go out and buy some local snacks. Right away, Ethan hurried off to do as he was told. When Orissa entered the ward, she beamed when saw the 6 children telling Mary stories while sitting around the latter's bed. Madam Mary, it's time to get some rest. I'm fine. I was just listening to their stories. Isa, why were you out for so long? Mary expressed her concern with a narrowed gaze. I was out shopping for some clothes. Come, Madam Mary, why don't you try them on? After putting down the shopping bags, Orissa took out Mary's clothes to measure against the latter's body. You bought clothes for me. You shouldn't have. Mary was surprised by the gesture. Don't worry about it. Since you'll be staying in the hospital for a while, it would be better to have more clothes that you change into, Orissa reassured Mary. There's no such concern as I'm wearing the hospital gown all the time. Mary was deeply touched. It's all right. You can wear them once you're discharged. After Orissa measured the clothes against Mary's body and was satisfied with the fit, she put them back in the bag. Mommy, you bought a lot of clothes. When Jessie peeked into the bag, her eyes lit up. Orissa glanced at her. These are for Tim. I didn't get anything for you, and will do so next time. Okay. Filled with delight, Jessie gestured to Tim. Tim, come quickly. Mommy bought you a lot of clothes. Look, there's even a pair of shoes. Chapter 548. Tim, come here, Orissa called her son in a soft voice. Why you didn't tell us that you were going to the mall, Mommy? Do you shop in secret? Jasper's feet swung irritably as he voiced his displeasure. Orissa laughed. I just went running a quick errand of getting some clothes. We'd take all day if I were to bring you kids with me. Oliver grinned. We're not slowing you down, are we? We just wanted to come with you, that's all. Orissa knocked Oliver on the head playfully as she beckoned Tim to come over. Come try these on, Tim. Let's see if they fit. You should have brought Tim to shop for his clothes, Mommy. Zachary pulled Tim forward as he spoke. That way, you wouldn't have to worry about whether or not they fit. What a hassle it would be if you had to return to the shop to get them changed if they didn't fit Tim. It was a last-minute plan, all right. Orissa smiled helplessly at his indignance as she pulled Tim over and pulled a shirt over his head. Is it a good fit? She asked, gazing at her son with a twinkle in her eye as she smoothed the front of his shirt. Tim chanced a sheepish glance at Orissa before hurrying away. Stunned by his sudden movement, Orissa's eyes followed Tim. The child ran to the coffee table to procure something she could not see before jogging back again. When he returned, she saw a hot egg, freshly boiled, in his little hand as he handed it to her. Here, Miss York. Orissa was deeply moved as she hurriedly took it from him. Putting the egg down, she held both the boy's hands in hers and blew into them. Did you burn yourself? Not at all. My skin is extraordinarily thick. Put it over your eye, Miss York. The heat will help. Orissa wrinkled her nose. I will. Thank you, sweetheart. Overwhelmed with emotion, she hugged Tim and kissed him on the cheek. Help yourself to your new clothes while I dab my eyes, will you? Tim nodded. Gavin and the other four smiled fondly at the scene. Sit over here, Mommy. I'll massage your eyes. Jasper made sure she was comfortable, leading her into a seat near him before he ran the warm egg over her closed eyelids. I'll help you, Tim. Gavin came over and took out the new clothes. Zachary, too, stepped forward to help. Tim took off his shirt and tried on the pants again. Oliver took out his shoes from the shopping bag in the meantime. Jessie stood to the side and happily watched her brother try on some new clothes. You look so handsome, Tim. Tim blushed. Thank you. Try on those shoes, Tim, suggested Oliver as he crouched down to loosen the shoelaces. Coming. Tim sat on the ground and took his time putting them on. Even Mary beamed at the sight before her. Benjamin entered and smiled ever so slightly at the sight of the children flocked around Tim before. Announcing his arrival. Tim, have you tried on all the new clothes? Tim leapt obediently to his feet. Yes, I've tried on everything Miss York bought. Benjamin tousled the boy's head. Did they fit? Tim nodded. They do. Try on the altered ones again. Gavin had already taken them out of the bag at Benjamin's words and was holding it out for Tim. Benjamin glanced at the children before addressing Orissa. Ethan will drop by with food in a few minutes. Orissa jumped as she took the egg before glancing at him. Then, she closed her eyes so Tim could continue rubbing the egg over her eye sockets. Benjamin raised his brows before sauntering over. Along the way, he motioned for the boy to step aside. Jasper did not cooperate. I'll do Mommy's eyes. With a displeased frown, Benjamin shoved the boy aside casually and snatched the egg from his chubby little hand. Jasper's face contorted with anger. Bandit. Orissa opened her eyes at the commotion and was surprised to see Benjamin seated next to her. Keep them shut, he ordered. I can do this on my own, she said hastily. Oh God, so many people are watching. Orissa touched her neck, feeling a tad warm at the moment. Tired of having his orders defied, Benjamin leaned into Orissa intrusively and startled her so much that she squeezed her eyes shut. His thin lips curled upward in triumph. Benjamin turned his attention toward the task at hand. Why are your eyes swollen? Did you not sleep well? Chapter 549. No, Mommy has been crying. Jasper's quick retort at Benjamin earned him a frown of disapproval from the latter. Orissa jumped out of her reverie and pushed Benjamin's hand away. How was I not aware? Jasper watched the adults for a while before turning to his siblings and found Gavin and the others staring at him. He smiled so broadly that his eyes were slits. I made that up. Benjamin's eyes flashed as he gently turned Orissa's face to place the egg's warmer side against her other cheek. Orissa closed her eyes and raised her neck, feeling the man's breath on her face from time to time. Her heartbeat accelerated again, reveling in his masculine scent. Orissa felt her heart hammering wildly against her ribs and wondered if he could tell. As if in response, Benjamin's eyes flickered. A hint of mischief appeared in his eyes at the sight of her blushing cheeks. Does that feel better? He asked when he switched sides again. The glint in Benjamin's eyes became more profound at the quaver in Orissa's grunt. He inched closer with great deliberation. What's wrong? Orissa felt as if she was being hugged by him. Her ears became hot. That's enough. She pushed his hand away. Stop moving. Benjamin grabbed her wrist. I'm not done yet. Orissa gulped before resigning to lean back in her chair so Benjamin could dab her eyes. Are they swollen? Did I really cry in my sleep? She had dreamt that Tim would not forgive her. Even worse, he refused to recognize her as his mother. She remembered feeling heartbroken in the dream. Do the clothes fit, Tim? She asked him softly once more. They do, Tim chirped in response before trying on another set. What about the altered ones? She asked, smiling a little more now. I'm trying them out, Miss York. Everything seems to be in order. I finally have a set that fits. Like music to her ears, the child's tender voice made Orissa smile with delight like music to her ears. I'm glad, sweetheart. Put aside the ill-fitting shoes for now. You can try them on again in a few years when you grow into them. Tim nodded wordlessly before a glance at her. Upon recalling that Orissa had her eyes attended to, he answered her with his voice. I will. Benjamin looked down at her bright little face with gentle eyes. Suddenly, a familiar voice came. I'm getting diabetes just being around the sweetness in this room. Good thing I'm in a hospital. Orissa turned and met Kingsley's mischievous smile. Benjamin, too, glanced at the newcomer. The children were surprised to see him. Uncle Kingsley. Kingsley beamed as he walked toward them, who ran over to meet him halfway, clearly delighted by his presence. What are you doing here, Uncle Kingsley? Kingsley gave each child a hug and a tousle as he replied, I miss you kids, that's why. Where are your brother? Upon noticing Tim in the corner looking at him after a quick glance around, Kingsley's mouth fell open in astonishment. What a tanned child. Tim seemed to wilt before their eyes. Zachary rapped Kingsley's forehead severely. You aren't allowed to say such things about Tim, Uncle Kingsley. If you're not careful, you'll be even darker than him. Upon regaining his senses, Kingsley squatted in front of the child at once to apologize. I'm sorry, Tim. I shouldn't have teased you like that. Will you forgive me? As he spoke, Kingsley reached out to stroke the boy's lowered head. It's all right. His eyes lighting up suddenly, Kingsley bent over to pick Tim up to the group's surprise. What a fine complexion Tim has, he declared. The rest of you should get some sun. Look at all these pallid little faces. The other 5 children stared at him angrily. You are the one who needs a tan. Okay, fine, I'm the pale one here. Being in an exceptionally amicable mood, Kingsley hurriedly placated the indignant children. Orissa was amused. How did you find us here, Mr. Watts? She asked, remembering Benjamin's prior warning not to inform Kingsley. Chapter 550. Oh, don't remind me. It's all Sean's fault for preferring to watch me suffer as I stumble around in search of where you might be than to just give me the address. After vented, Kingsley smiled at Tim again. This is Uncle Kingsley, Tim. Tim looked at him curiously. Are you Uncle Kingsley? Kingsley was surprised. You know me. The boy nodded as he had heard the name on more than one occasion. Kingsley laughed and pinched his little face adoringly before noticing that the child was all bones. Poor Tim, he said, visibly distressed. Don't they ever feed you? I'll take you for something nice to fatten you up. To Orissa's amusement, Tim pouted. Benjamin shot her a glance before turning her head to get a better angle of her eyes. That's enough now, she said. What's wrong with your eyes, Orissa? Did Benjamin hit you? With Tim in his arms, Kingsley came over to tease Orissa next. He did not, Orissa explained hurriedly. It had nothing to do with him. Kingsley gave them a meaningful smile. This is the first time I'd seen Benjamin dab a woman's eyes so tenderly. Becoming a ladies' man, are you? Orissa was embarrassed. Her whole body stiffened up at the sight of Tim in Kingsley's arms. Regaining her mobility the next second, she got up and quickly took her son. Benjamin glared at Kingsley before reprimanding in a deep voice, "What are you making such a racket for? Can't you see that Madame Mary is trying to rest?" It was only then that Kingsley noticed the figure in the hospital bed as he had his attention captured by the children earlier. "My apologies, madam," Kingsley hastily apologized to Mary. "Don't be," Mary replied affably. "Don't feel like you're disturbing me, too. I happen to like the noise." It had been many years since she found herself in the middle of a lively scene like that. Benjamin signaled for Kingsley to leave with a severe glare, though Kingsley did not cooperate at first. Despite wanting to stay, Kingsley quailed under Benjamin's glare and followed him out. "I'll play with you later, children." Orissa looked at them before turning to address her son. "Are the altered clothes comfortable?" Tim nodded. At that moment, Benjamin walked in and handed Orissa an egg. "Here, eat this." Orissa took it and sat down with her son in her arms. With a smart rap against the table, she peeled the shell off neatly and handed it to Tim. "Thank you for the egg, Tim. Here, it's yours." Tim shook his head. "You should eat it, Miss York." Orissa was moved by the sincerity in her son's eyes. "How about we share it?" Tim looked at Gavin and the other 5. He bit his lip and shook his head. "It's not fair that I get to eat the egg and the others do not." Interpreting her son's reluctance correctly, Orissa smiled. "One egg isn't enough for all of you," she said with a glance at the 5 children. "It's better that I eat it instead." Jessie ran over and threw her arms around Orissa's neck. "Mommy," she said coquettishly, "I'll help you with it." Orissa was greatly amused by the girl's initiative and expressed it by brushing her nose affectionately. "Here you go." The little girl shrugged her shoulders happily. "Thank you, Mommy." Jessie kissed her mother's cheek before seating herself on Orissa's side as she helped herself with the egg. "Would you like to share this with me, Tim?" "No, thank you." Tim shook his head. "You can have all of it." Orissa put him down. "Are there any more eggs? I can cook some more." "There aren't any more, Miss York," Tim informed her. "I borrowed the last one from the nurse." Orissa froze. She was so moved that Tim overcame his shyness to speak to strangers for her that she sniffled. "Did you return it to her?" Tim lowered his head. "I'd treated her to a cup of water for her." "Help." Orissa stroked his hair fondly. "That's very nice of you, sweetheart." Tim glanced at her before lowering his head again. His ears were scarlet. "You don't have to, Mommy," Zachary said. "We shouldn't eat so close to dinner. I'm sure they wouldn't hold it against us if Jessie ate one egg of theirs."